She drained our retirement account and left me for a man she barely knew. My wife, the woman I built 18 years of life with, sent me a video from a hotel bed, smiling. She thought she'd won, but while she was planning her escape, I was already 10 steps ahead. I tracked every dollar, I traced every lie, and I turned the man she ran away with into a case study in criminal fraud. This isn't a story about heartbreak. This is about precision, evidence, and watching two people learn, too late, that the quiet ones are usually the most dangerous. My name is Ethan Marlowe. I was 46 years old when I learned what betrayal truly looked like. Not a scream, not a fight, not even a tear. It came as a 43-second video and a smile. Renee had always loved expensive hotels, but this one I didn't recognize. Floor-to-ceiling windows, gold lighting, the kind of suite you don't book for business. She was holding a champagne glass in one hand, a tennis bracelet on her wrist that sparkled like gilt. Her voice? Light, almost cheerful. "I'm staying with James now," she said. "Oh, and I've liquidated the retirement accounts." "You'll land on your feet." "I did." The phone shook slightly in my hand as the video ended. I didn't react. Not the way you'd expect. No throwing things, no screaming, just silence. I placed the phone gently on the marble counter, the one I had installed last year when she said we needed to modernize. Everything in this house had her fingerprints on it. The minimalist white furniture, the abstract paintings, the espresso machine I never learned to use. Her world, her taste, her rules. I walked slowly to the dining room. The framed photos told stories I now questioned. The trip to Tulum, the ski lodge in Aspen, the rooftop in Florence. In every photo, her smile looked the same. Radiant, practiced. Mine? More content than joyful, like a man trying to hold on to something slipping between his fingers. We met when we were both 28. She was in pharmaceutical sales. Smooth, fast-talking, charming. I was the opposite. Quiet, information technology systems consultant. I managed the infrastructure for a regional bank. We married 6 months after our first date. She always said I was safe. I thought she meant that in a good way. "You plan, I live," she used to laugh. I thought that was balance. It was a warning. The signs didn't come in loud bursts. They arrived like updates on a dashboard. Subtle, ignorable, unless you knew how to read them. And reading anomalies is what I do for a living. Late dinners that turned into weekends away. New outfits with tags from stores we couldn't afford. Credit card statements with charges at restaurants in cities she never mentioned visiting. Smiles while texting. Smiles that weren't mine to see. I never confronted her. Not directly. That's not how I'm wired. Instead, I created contingencies. 3 years ago, I landed a major consulting contract with Cloud FIT. Big client, big risks. I formed a separate LLC for liability. Renee signed the papers I slid across the table, barely glancing at them. "Are we doing okay financially?" she asked. "We're fine," I said. And we were. Just not the way she assumed. Over the next 24 months, I moved 70% of our assets into accounts tied to my business. I left enough in the joint account to keep things looking normal. She didn't notice. She never asked. Last month, she started asking about the retirement. Curious, probing. "Can we access it easily? Are you the only one listed as a beneficiary?" "Hypothetically, what if something happened to you?" I smiled. I gave vague answers. I updated the beneficiaries the next morning. So when that video came, her little victory speech, it wasn't shock I felt. It was confirmation. She thought I was blind, that I'd just sit and unravel. But I wasn't the one unraveling. I was the architect of this house, and I had designed an escape route years ago. I picked up my phone again, rewatched the video, the smugness, the certainty. "You'll land on your feet." I typed 2 words and hit send, wise decision. She wouldn't understand it. Not now, but she would. I walked to my home office, bottom drawer, locked. Inside, a folder labeled Our Contingency Bank Statements, transfer forms, power of attorney documents, signed and legally, cleanly. I'd built a firewall around my future. She had no idea. I sat down and opened a spreadsheet titled Exit Protocol. It had steps, timelines, contacts. I'd hoped I'd never use it, but I wasn't the hoping type anymore. The first call I made was to our bank. "Mr. Marlowe," the representative said, "we were just about to contact you. There's been unusual activity." "I'm aware," I said. "My wife attempted to liquidate our joint retirement account. I did not authorize it." Silence, then urgency. "In that case, we'll initiate a fraud report and freeze the account immediately." "Please do." That was the moment our marriage ended. Not when she sent the video, but when I filed that report. As the sun began to set, I looked out the office window. Boise was quiet, golden, and for the first time in years, I felt still. I didn't feel rage or heartbreak, just purpose, because she thought this was the end. But she didn't know the man she married. Not really. She thought I was just an IT guy. She didn't know I was a systems designer, and she was the flaw I'd been preparing to isolate. They say betrayal blindsides you, that it shatters the ground beneath your feet. But mine was different. It came in waves, small inconsistencies, 1,000 micro betrayals that stacked up like bad code, quiet bugs in a marriage that had once felt unbreakable. I first noticed the cracks 5 years ago. We were hosting one of Renee's dinner parties. She thrived in those. Wine flowing, curated playlists, the right people saying the right things. She moved like she owned the room. And maybe in her mind, she did. That night, I went to grab her coat from the bedroom and saw the open credit card bill on the nightstand. A $3,000 charge at a high-end jewelry store. No birthday, no anniversary, no mention. "It's for my mom," she said, breezing past the question. A surprise. 3 months later, her mother visited. No new jewelry. I didn't argue. I noted it and filed it away. The late nights began after that. At first, they were work events, then weekend retreats. Then came the personal trainer, then the fitness tracker she said helped her reclaim independence. Her phone began living face down on the table. She stopped asking me how work was going. She stopped sitting beside me on the couch. She stopped laughing at the same things, but she kept signing the papers. Every quarterly report I brought her to sign, she glanced, flipped, scribbled her name, moved on. "You're the numbers guy," she'd say. "Just tell me if we're broke." We weren't, not by a long shot, because by then, I had started building something behind the scenes. When I landed the Cloud IT contract, I told her I needed to restructure things for tax efficiency and liability separation. She nodded, barely interested. That was the day I created EM Strategics LLC, a holding company for consulting income, investments, and asset control. The joint account remained untouched, a decoy, but behind it, I was rerouting our life's work. Over the next 2 years, 70% of our retirement savings were legally shifted into business-tied funds. I opened 2 private brokerage accounts in the LLC's name, with Renee listed only as a passive shareholder, not an authorized user. I purchased a private property trust, listed under my business, and parked capital there, discreetly and defensively. Everything was documented, everything above board, but invisible to someone who never bothered to look past the surface. She thought I was predictable, but I work in disaster recovery. I designed for failure. 8 months ago, the withdrawals started. Tiny at first, $300 here, $500 there, just enough to slip under fraud detection limits. Then $2,000, then $4,500. She blamed retail therapy. "You're always working," she said. "It helps me feel less invisible." I said nothing, but I bought a second phone, a burner. I set it up with bank alerts linked only to the joint account. Silent monitoring. Every transaction came to me first. Then 6 weeks ago, I caught the first large transfer, $18,000, labeled as investment repositioning. Investment in what? A week later, she started asking about the retirement funds again. "Do we have a backup account? What if something happened to you? Would it automatically transfer to me?" She was planning her exit and didn't realize I had already built the exit strategy first. People think restraint is weakness, that staying quiet means you're not paying attention. But quiet is where the work happens. It's where preparation becomes power. I watched, listened, archived. Every text, every call, every receipt she left behind in the laundry. I saved them in a folder named /r-pattern/ on an encrypted flash drive. Timestamps, locations, bank data, everything. I started working late too. But my overtime wasn't for clients, I was preparing the kill switch. Then came the video. Her voice was so casual, so polished. "You'll land on your feet." I did. She thought she'd buried me under a smile and a signature. But all she did was trigger the protocol I had quietly built, like flipping a breaker in a system designed for blackouts. The same afternoon, I contacted our financial institutions to flag unauthorized activity, informed my legal advisor, Daniel Green, and scheduled a meeting. Booked a session with Jack Harlow, a forensic accountant I'd worked with on a corporate fraud case 2 years ago. I wasn't spiraling, I was escalating. I had no interest in public drama, no need for revenge porn or emotional outbursts. My approach was simpler. Let the system destroy her for me. I didn't need to scream. I just needed to document. Because in the end, I wouldn't just expose Renee. I would expose the man behind her betrayal too, James. And if this man thought he could take my money, my marriage, and disappear into the night, he was about to learn what it feels like to be watched, not by a jealous husband, but by an IT strategist who sees everything. 3 days after I froze the accounts, my phone buzzed with 10 messages in 10 minutes, all from Renee. "Why can't I access our funds? The bank is asking about fraud. What did you do? Ethan, answer me now." I didn't reply. I didn't even open the threads. Instead, I sent a short message to Jack Harlow. "Need you. Full trace. Everything." Jack wasn't just a forensic accountant. He was meticulous, surgical with numbers. 2 years ago, we'd worked a joint project exposing embezzlement inside a logistics firm. The man saw patterns like I saw code. He called me within the hour. "Been expecting this call," he said dryly. "She started moving the bigger amounts, didn't she?" 87,000 and counting, I said. "I need names, endpoints, and I need it for court. Send me your bank access logs. I'll start tonight." By the next evening, Jack had a preliminary report. We sat in his downtown office. Lights low, blinds drawn, spreadsheets glowing across twin monitors. "It's not just her," he said, handing me a folder. "You're dealing with a professional leech. Name's James Whitaker." That name again. The same one from the video. The same one Renee left everything for. Jack tapped a highlighted section of the ledger. She didn't just splurge, she funneled. Thousands were wired directly to an account under Whitaker's name at another bank. Multiple transfers, always under fraud alert thresholds. Some tagged as consulting, others labeled reimbursement. One was called gift. Altogether, $20,400, straight to James. "That's enough for theft charges," Jack said. "But here's what got my attention. This isn't his first time." He opened another file. James Whitaker, 41st Regional Manager for Voxton Audio, divorced twice. Both ex-wives filed civil complaints for financial misconduct, settled privately, records sealed, but money trails stay messy. I stared at the printed bank statements. Names, routing numbers, familiar echoes of my own account. "He finds married women in high-income partnerships," Jack continued, "usually sales reps in expanding markets. Hooks in during cross-company events. Love bombing. Discontent, then siphoning." I remembered Renee's sudden work travel, her new pharmaceutical client, Voxton. It all clicked. "The timeline's exact," I said slowly. "She met him during that territory expansion. Same time the big withdrawals began." Jack nodded. "It's a script, and he's perfected it." This wasn't just infidelity. This was targeted financial predation. She wasn't just cheating. She was manipulated, or complicit, in funneling our assets to a serial con man. And no one knew. Not her employer. Not his. But I knew. And now I had evidence. Back home, I didn't turn on the lights. I sat in the dark with the folder open, reading every line again. This wasn't about pain anymore. This was about strategy. I wasn't just the wronged husband now. I was a witness, a survivor, and maybe a rescuer of the women who'd come before. And those James hadn't reached yet. The next morning, I called Daniel Green, my attorney. We met at his office high above Boise's quiet skyline. I slid the folder across the desk. "We're escalating," I said. "This isn't just a divorce anymore." Daniel reviewed the file, his fingers slowing at the bank transfers. "If this is accurate, and I believe it is, James Whitaker is about to have a very bad month. He deserves more than bad luck. He deserves exposure." Daniel leaned back, thinking. "We have three options. 1, use this as leverage in the divorce. 2, file criminal complaints against both of them. 3, go bigger. Get the others involved." "There are others," I confirmed. "Jack found 2 prior victims. Then we build a pattern, a legal one. Get them on record." I nodded. "And one more thing," I added. "Voxton Audio. They need to know who's managing their regional partnerships." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Anonymous tip?" "For now," he smiled. "This is going to be one hell of a settlement." 2 days later, I sat in my office and wrote the email. Short, untraceable, sent from a mass domain to Voxton's compliance team. "Anonymous tip regarding James Whitaker. Pattern of unethical financial relationships with sales reps from partnered firms. Possible misuse of company access and funds. Recommend internal review of recent partner expansions, specifically territories added in the past 12 to 18 months." I hit send. And waited, not passively, strategically. Behind the scenes, Daniel contacted the attorneys of James's previous victims. Both agreed to cooperate. Their financial records mirrored mine. Eerily. Emotional arcs, nearly identical. Love, distance, sudden control, then theft. Jack compiled all 3 timelines into a master file, a case study in manipulation, fraud wrapped in romance, the kind of file a DA's office loves. And Renee? She kept texting. The tone changed, from confusion to blame, then desperation. "James isn't who I thought. I think I've made a mistake. Can we talk?" I didn't reply, because it wasn't time for closure, it was time for consequences. 7 days after Jack delivered the final forensic report, I received an email from my lawyer, Daniel Green. Court date confirmed, Tuesday 10 a.m. Evidence accepted into supplemental record. Opposing counsel notified. Prepare for confrontation. Not confrontation as in screaming or drama, but real confrontation. Legal, financial, surgical. I spent the weekend finishing preparations. New locks were installed on the house. All digital accounts, email, bank, utilities, received fresh passwords. Every trace of Renee was removed from my home, except one photo. Our honeymoon. I left it on the mantle, not out of sentiment, but as a visual reminder of how deeply I'd once believed in something that wasn't real. On Monday night, I didn't sleep much, not out of anxiety, but anticipation. Tuesday, 9:45 a.m. I stepped into the courthouse in a tailored gray suit. I carried nothing but a small leather folder. Daniel was already waiting, calm as ever, sipping from a stainless steel travel mug. "They're here," he said quietly. I turned to see them. Renee and James. She looked smaller somehow, not physically but emotionally. Her usual armor of designer perfection cracked in subtle ways. A crooked eyelash, roots showing at her hairline, a clutch held too tightly. He, on the other hand, looked annoyed, as if court was a scheduling inconvenience. They sat at the respondents' table. I didn't acknowledge them. 10:02 a.m. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman with silver glasses, entered. "This hearing pertains to the marital dissolution case of Marlowe versus Marlowe. New evidence has been submitted by the plaintiff. We will begin with that." Daniel stood, poised and crisp. "Your Honor, we present documentation of a systematic financial misconduct, including forged authorization forms, fraudulent withdrawals, and the funneling of marital funds to a third party." He laid out our exhibit packet, bank statements, Renee's video confession, James's account activity, the master spreadsheet from Jack, statements from 2 of James's former partners, notarized and sworn. As Daniel presented, I didn't look at Renee. I watched James. At first he leaned back, arms folded. Then he frowned, then sat up. By the time Daniel mentioned the DA referral, his mouth tightened into a flat line. Mr. Whitaker, the judge said suddenly, you are not on trial today, but based on the evidence provided, I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for review. This court does not take lightly the potential of a financial predator using intimate relationships for theft. Renee made a sound then, a shallow exhale, not quite a gasp, like hope draining out of her lungs. After a short recess, we returned for asset discussion. Renee's lawyer stood and attempted to reframe the situation. Your Honor, my client was misled by Mr. Whitaker. She was emotionally vulnerable and unaware of the financial implications. The judge raised her hand, silencing him. Mrs. Marlowe recorded herself admitting to the liquidation of accounts without consent. That is not confusion. That is intent. She turned to Renee directly. You should understand the severity of your actions. Forging financial documents is fraud. Transferring marital funds to an outside party, particularly someone with a known pattern of exploitation, is not just a lapse in judgment, it is potentially criminal. Renee didn't respond. Her chin trembled. Accordingly, the judge continued, all disputed assets are hereby frozen pending resolution. Mrs. Marlowe is barred from accessing any joint or disputed funds, and the court grants the plaintiff full financial conservatorship until final division. Daniel leaned toward me and whispered, that means she just lost access to everything. Outside the courtroom, I expected them to disappear, but Renee stopped me near the elevator. Ethan, please just listen. I didn't answer. I didn't know, not really. I thought James, he said we'd start over. He said a lot of things, I cut in. To you, to other women. We have all of it. James stood a few feet behind her, hands in his pockets, jaw clenched. He told me we'd build something, she said, her voice cracking. He made me believe he cared. I stayed silent. You have to believe me, she whispered. I don't, I replied. And the best part is, I don't have to anymore. I turned to James. You know, for someone who steals professionally, you're not very good at covering your tracks. He didn't respond. There's a difference between outsmarting someone and just hoping they're too blind to check the logs. His eyes narrowed. You think this is over? He finally said. No, I said. I think it's just starting. That night, Daniel forwarded an email from Voxton Audio's HR department. Thank you for your anonymous submission. An internal ethics investigation into Mr. Whitaker's conduct has been opened. Over the next 2 weeks, the fallout came fast. Voxton suspended James pending review. The bank launched a formal fraud complaint. The DA's office opened a financial exploitation case. Renee's lawyer entered settlement negotiations, quickly and quietly. And Renee, her text turned frantic. I didn't know he was doing this to others. I was used, Ethan, just like you. Please talk to me. I didn't respond, but I did take one call. Jack, 2 weeks after the hearing. You'll want to hear this, he said. He forwarded an encrypted folder. Inside, documentation that James had attempted to move funds again. Not from Renee this time, but from another woman barely 3 months into a new job. The same pattern, different target. He's unstoppable, Jack said, unless someone stops him. Then let's finish this, I said. I met Daniel the next morning. Let's move beyond divorce, and I told him. Let's file the charges. He nodded. Full press? Every document, every victim, every transfer. This was no longer about Renee, not anymore. This was about the next woman James hadn't met yet, about making sure he never got the chance to ruin someone else's life the way he had tried to ruin mine. It wasn't revenge, it was accountability. And for the first time in months, I was ready to deliver it. 6 weeks after the courtroom showdown, I stood in a small hearing room downtown. Not as a plaintiff this time, but as a cooperating witness. The district attorney had taken the case. The charges, financial fraud, unauthorized access to joint accounts, and criminal conspiracy to defraud. Renee had already broken. When presented with the full forensic record, transfers, fake signatures, Jack's timeline of activity, and the other women's testimonies, she did what I expected. She turned on James. Her lawyer negotiated a deal. No jail time, full restitution, permanent relinquishment of any claim to my LLC or business assets, and cooperation in James's prosecution. She agreed without a fight. Funny how fast loyalty fades when self-preservation kicks in. James wasn't as lucky. His legal team tried to spin it, claimed he didn't know Renee was married, that she'd forged the paperwork alone, that he wasn't aware the funds were marital. But too many wires bore his name, too many accounts tied to his social, too many victims lining up with identical stories. In the final hearing, 3 women testified before the court. 3 different lives, same damage, same man. When the judge read the charges aloud, wire fraud, financial manipulation, exploitation, I watched James for a reaction. There was none. Just a long blink, like someone finally realizing there's no more exit door. The courtroom fell silent before sentencing. Renee sat alone now, her attorney at her side but no James to lean on. She looked smaller than ever. Not broken, not fragile, just empty. Like someone who had burned every bridge and only now smelled the smoke. Her eyes met mine briefly across the aisle. I didn't glare. I didn't nod. I didn't smirk. I just looked at her the way you look at a stranger you used to know, from a lifetime ago. The judge's voice echoed, "Mr. Whitaker, this court finds your actions deliberate, harmful, and part of a repeated pattern of financial exploitation. You are hereby sentenced to 6 to 8 years in state custody with parole eligibility after 5 gasps." Whispers. James didn't react. He just looked down. And just like that, it was over. Outside, Daniel turned to me. "You good?" "I am now," I said. "You want to talk to her?" he asked. "No." There was nothing left to say. She'd told her story. To the court, to the press, maybe to herself. I didn't need her words anymore. A month later, the restitution payments began. Renee had sold the luxury car, moved into a 2-bedroom condo in Oregon, took a junior sales job, one that didn't involve travel. She'd be paying me back for the next 11 years. James? Gone. Out of sight. Out of circulation. His LinkedIn was scrubbed. His Voxton profile deleted. His name was now attached to a court case. Searchable. Permanent. And me? I moved into a quiet high-rise on the edge of the Boise River. The condo wasn't flashy, but it was mine. Decorated not in white-on-white minimalism, but wood tones, dark blues, warm lights. I built a reading corner, a workspace with a full server rack, a kitchen I actually used, and I framed one thing for the wall, a printed line from my old spreadsheet, the one labeled Exit Protocol. It read, "Protect the peace, then rebuild from it." Andrea stopped by one evening. Project manager, sharp, funny, grounded. She wasn't a rebound. She wasn't a rescue. She was real. We were taking it slow, no illusions, no stories. Just 2 people who'd lived enough to know that trust wasn't given, it was earned. I kept one photo from my marriage, the same honeymoon shot I'd left on the mantle. Not because I missed it, but because I needed to remember something. Love without honesty is just performance. Trust without accountability is a trap. I hadn't just survived. I'd redesigned the system, purged the threat. And this time, I was the architect of my own peace. 6 months after the trial, I woke to the sound of the river. My new condo overlooked the Boise Greenbelt. Peaceful, steady. A place designed for stillness. I brewed my own coffee now, just the way I liked it. No imported beans, no machine with too many buttons, just strong, black, and simple. There was no echo of perfume in the guest room, no passive-aggressive reminders on sticky notes, no tension hiding in the corners of conversations, just peace. The divorce was finalized. The restitution process was automatic. Renee's payments arrived on the 3rd of each month, a number on a screen I didn't even check anymore. She had avoided jail, but she couldn't avoid consequence. Her cooperation had helped convict James Whitaker. He was now serving time. 3 women, including Renee, had testified to his pattern. I didn't attend the sentencing. I didn't need to. I wasn't seeking revenge anymore. I was protecting the system I'd rebuilt, myself. Professionally, my consulting firm grew. Crisis, it turns out, sharpens everything. Focus, decision-making, instincts. I launched a new service offering, Digital fraud prevention for high-income clients navigating personal transitions, divorce, inheritance, business breakups. A few clients knew my backstory, most didn't. They just saw the results. A quiet man with airtight strategies and zero tolerance for risk. And that was enough. Andrea and I were still seeing each other, slowly, carefully. She never asked about Renee unless I brought it up. She never compared. She just listened, offered clarity, and showed up with kindness that didn't feel like a transaction. We weren't making grand plans. We were building something solid, one conversation at a time. Sometimes late at night, I'd catch myself staring at the only photo I'd kept from my marriage. Renee and I on a balcony in Santorini. Both of us tan, smiling, full of hope. People ask why I didn't throw it away. I didn't keep it out of nostalgia. I kept it as a reminder that love isn't proof of loyalty, that smiles can lie, and that trust is a currency you don't spend blindly. I used to believe betrayal came with signs, a tone, a delay, a missed detail. But now I know better. Sometimes betrayal wears your wedding ring and laughs in your kitchen while it robs you blind. But that's not the story I live in anymore. That was the storm. This is the rebuild. Every file is protected, every account double verified, every person in my life chosen with intention. And me? I no longer apologize for being methodical, cautious, prepared. It saved me. It saved what mattered. The sun broke through the window as I packed for a weekend trip. Just a cabin, some books, a long trail, and no signal. Before leaving, I shut down my computer and glanced one last time at the framed quote on the wall. From the protocol that started it all. Protect the peace, then rebuild from it. That's what I'd done. Not just won, not just survived, but rebuilt on my terms.